So we're back. We were talking about lifeguard, and was there a particular beach that was your favorite?
I love working at South Shore.
Oh, okay.
It was such a gem because it's on the south side. So because it's this thing I do. Like sometimes the negativity of being black works in our favor. We don't tell people. Like I'll give you an example. I'm like the nicest dude on earth. And sometimes when I get on a plane, I put on like my blackest face ever. So that way nobody sits next to me, right? And so it was like that at South Shore. No one came down there because it was on the south side.
Okay.
So it's pretty easy work. What I meant, like you didn't have to save 10 kids a day like you did at North Avenue. But you were on the beach. It's still the same Chicago lakefront. It's still beautiful. It's still Lake Michigan. You still see the skyline, right? So I love being at South Shore.
Yeah. These days, do you feel like there are still hidden gems around the city?
Yeah, I think they never go away, right? I think they become popular, then they fade, and people rediscover them.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
So then tell me about how you landed at ComEd. So I saw ComEd at a trade fair when I was there representing the EMT class, and I did not know they were as big. I mean, it makes sense how big they are, but it seems like there's a role for anyone within ComEd.
My goodness. You know, that's partially where my username comes from, right? Six Figure Dilla. Getting a job there, I made six figures.
Oh!
Right? It's, I was working at the cable company, like tech support, the dude you call and help you fix your box and signal, blah, blah, blah. And my best friend from college, one of my best friends from college was like, hey, we're hiring meter readers. And it was like maybe $5 more an hour than what I was making. It was
That's significant at the end. And how old were you at, like 22, 23? Or?
No, I was a little older than that, like 27.
27, okay.
Like and so it was paying, you know, I might have been like at 15 an hour or something. This is like in 2010 too, right? So like 15 an hour or something like that at Comcast. And he's like, yeah, this is going to pay you 20 weekends off, 6 to 2. I'm like, oh man, I can see my kids. This is no brainer. I didn't know I was going to be walking like 10 miles a day some days, like reading meters though. But man, that ended up being like the greatest thing on earth for a person that loves history, because aside from the physicality of it, I started off my career in the suburbs, which I had no kind of connection to as a city dude, right?
Okay.
So I learned Darien, I learned Hinsdale, I learned Burr Oak, I learned Woodridge, I learned Bolingbrook. Like I know these places because when you're walking in people's backyards, you better remember the streets, otherwise you won't remember how to walk back to your car.
Sure.
And then when I got transferred to the north side of Chicago, it put me even in more spaces, right? Because it's a South Side kid. When you're in Andersonville, right? If you go up near Loyola and you don't go to school up there, you're a black dude, you're gonna get the police called on you. So we just don't go. And you know, I was in somebody's backyard when this 85-year-old dude told me. So the best way to explain anything is a joke. So when I got my license, I told the girl like, "Hey baby, I'm gonna take you to the islands." And so when she got in the car, we went to Stony Island, right? So of course he's pissed. So fast forward, I'm this adult meter reader, and it's like, I swear he gotta be 85 years old. He stops me, he's like, "Hey man, when I took my wife on a date, I told her I was gonna take her to Broadway." And what he ended up doing was taking her to Broadway Street, right? And here in Chicago, but Broadway Street used to be Evanston Street.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, okay. And so when it got changed in 1909, that was like the running jokes that all the dudes would tell their ladies, "I'm gonna take you to Broadway, they're just taking you to Uptown," right?
That is hilarious.
So just to know that was still a thing, 80 years apart, right? Like those kind of things made me very curious to the city.
And people from both ends, North and South Side.
Right. And so it makes you think like, what more do we get connected?
You've connected with. You've done tours with Tanika.
Yep, absolutely.
I haven't had the pleasure to speak with her, but her folded mat project is amazing.
Oh my goodness!
To bring people from across the city together.
We're doing one Monday that's sold out, and it's such a benefit to the city.
Sherman, hi. Welcome to the show, Sherman. To not repeat everything due to technical difficulties, we were starting to go into your journey of how you cultivated a curiosity for the city of Chicago, and we went into your time as a lifeguard, exploring different beaches and as well as your time with ComEd.
Yep.
So let's just start with your time at ComEd. You started as a meter reader. This was around the age of 27. You took it because it was $5 more than what you were initially making, and it gave you insight into the suburbs of Chicago as well as different neighborhoods of Chicago. what were your preconceived notions of some of these areas? Like growing up, did you have ideas of like what places to stay away from or things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Places like Bridgeport, right? You're taught that if you're a black dude, you don't go there after night, right? It was like a Chicago sundown town. But then the north side is a thing at all, right? Most of the time, south siders don't really go up there. You go to Wrigleyville to party, you go to Milwaukee and Damon to party, you come back home, and it allowed for me to just see that everybody's the same across the city, man. Like I think there are some cultural differences, right? Some folks eat pork, some don't, right? Some dudes wear Jordans, other dudes wear Vans, but for the most part, it's we're a bunch of kind people.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of immensely civically prideful people. It don't matter what side of town. You go up on Argyle Street, they're like proud as hell to be in Chicago. You go on Devon Street, they're like proud as hell to be in Chicago. And most of the time, that was like the bridge, you know what I mean? Because they have their own misconceptions or preconceptions too, right? So if you are Indian dude from Asia and you just moved your family to Devon Avenue, everybody there telling you stay out of Inglewood. And so until you meet a black dude from the south side, you don't know. And I saw a lot of that, right? Because again, if you got to let me in your business to read the meters, and the meters are downstairs, right? So now, and then most of the time you're getting the same meter reader every month. And so by the 7th month of the year, we've said hello and shook each other's hands 7 times.
Yeah.
We might be picking up on our previous conversation.
Yeah.
And so it was cool.
Growing up, I mean, my parents aren't like blatantly racist, but when they moved here, they had some negative interactions. Negative in the sense of like, let's say they got into a car accident and a black woman went off on my dad. And as an immigrant that just moved here that probably speaks broken English, that's overwhelming. It's intimidating, and you have now a negative outlook. And unfortunately, I think we're wired to just generalize.
Yep.
And that being said, he still has like black friends and things like that. But there's that fear there still, right? And I think the only thing is exposure.
Yep.
With that,
1,000%. I just was recently honored. I take the M1 Northwestern students, so the first year medical students at Northwestern University. I take on neighborhood tours. And one of the things I do is I level set. Now I'm going to start talking louder. Everybody's going to think that I'm yelling at you. But what I'm trying to explain to them is that there was zero real development on the south and west side since King got killed. So in suburbs, when you do a development, every house gets a tree planted in front of that house. And then after 20 years, that block has a tree canopy.
Yeah.
And so that tree canopy not only keeps shade and sun so that people can exercise more, but it blocks the 2 airports worth of airplanes that Chicago has. So if you're on a neighborhood up north, if you're in the suburbs, you hardly ever hear the airplanes. On the south side of Chicago, you hear every single airplane. So we've learned to speak louder to ignore the planes because of the disinvestment in security and other things. And because there is crime, every business on the south side has a bulletproof glass. So to get my chicken, I got to say, hey, yo, let me get 6 wings. And I'm yelling over bulletproof glass. And so I hear all that helicopters. But then where are the expressways? They're on the south and west side. The Dan Ryan is a 14-lane expressway. So if you live anywhere near that, you're screaming over 14 lanes of traffic. You're screaming over Midway Airport. You're screaming over O'Hare Airport. There are no tree canopies anywhere to be found. And so if this is the first time your Asian American pops is running into a black woman from the south side, she sound like she loud as shit.
Yeah. Because
that's how she's had to normally take her octave. And if no one ever explains that to her, like, hey, we are kind of loud because we're screaming over this stuff. You know, if you've been downtown, you've never heard an airplane downtown. You don't hear the airplanes downtown.
No, you don't.
Think about that. People take pictures of themselves flying over downtown, right? Them the greatest airplane pictures ever.
Yeah.
You don't hear the airplanes downtown. No. You don't hear the airplanes in Bolingbrook. You know, maybe in an open field, but not on the neighborhoods because they have the tree canopies from the development. So those are just one examples, right?
That's a beautiful example
of why we're a little louder. And then if at that initial interaction,
there's this visceral physicality to it too, that is not seen in Asian cultures.
Right. And so, that's why that cultural immersion is important, right? That's why it's important for Black folks to come down to different spaces and for people from different spaces to come to Black spaces.
Is there a group of people that you want to take on a tour that you haven't yet?
Definitely Asian Americans for sure.
Interesting.
Because what I know for a fact that most people on Cermak don't know right now that own a business is that it took a white dude and a Black dude working together to even grow that Chinatown. Binga Street Bank. So it's used to be called Armour Square, right? It's still the area is still Armour Square.
Yeah.
So the white dudes in Armour Square didn't want to sell the moving Asian Americans from Dearborn Street to Cermak Street anything. They didn't want to sell them nothing. And so this other white dude was like, that's kind of whack. And he was just like, I can make some money. So he went to Binga Bank. Binga was the first Black bank. Wow. And he took loans from Binga Bank and he bought property as a white dude from another white dude. And he immediately would sell it to the Asian dudes. And he did that for like 7 buildings. And then by the time those 7 buildings are purchased and, now the rest of the community see what's going on, so they start to move south, and then we get our second Chinatown, right? I would love to tell them those stories. I would love to let them know that the only jobs that Asian Americans could get when they came to Chicago was wash house or opening a restaurant, and the only help because white women thought that they was too good to wash at wash houses. If you want to grow your laundromat, you need help. The only help that the Asian American homies could get were Black women, right? And that's how their businesses grew. And then after World War I, it became American to be racist to Black people. And just as a byproduct of survival, everybody did it. And those two, particularly Asian Americans and Black folks from the South, got at the rough end establishing themselves. The original Chinatown was on Dearborn Street, where we call like Printers Row, like right about Van Buren and Dearborn and Clark. They got forced out to Armour Square.
More west.
More south, right?
More south, okay.
And the same thing, the original Bronzeville. Jones Commercial, that the Jones High School, Jones College Prep, is sitting on the land that used to be owned by the richest Black dude in the city. And after the Great Chicago Fire, they kind of took it all from him and started forcing Black folks to the south side. And so they took the land from Jewish folks and pushed them out to North Lawndale after the fire. Like the fires were like land grabs afterwards. And that should be something that's a unifier, right?
You said something on that last podcast of noticing a lot of Jewish stars.
Yeah.
On the churches in the south side.
Yeah.
West side.
They both what we call Bronzeville and both what we call North Lawndale were really thriving Jewish communities. The largest synagogue in the Midwest is today Mount Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church. It's on 44th and King. But Rabbi Emil Hirsch was the rabbi. He's one of the founders of the NAACP. And that was the largest synagogue. And so you see those stars still because the Jewish homies were like the first ones to sell the brothers their synagogues and like fairly priced, right? Sometimes if a Protestant church or Catholic church was going to switch hands, a real estate intermediary, right, would price gouge. He undercut the white Catholics dudes like, hey, you better hurry up and sell because the Black dude's coming and your property's going to go down. And then so they would fall for it. And then he would double whatever he bought when he sold to the Black church. Like, hey, they barely want to sell it to you. They know you're Black. They're overcharging you, right? So they will play the middle. The rabbis didn't play that game. They didn't use real estate people. It was just a direct sale. Okay. And so that allowed for people to treat each other like human beings. And that's why you still see the Stars of David, right? It was like a respect thing. Like for being respectful, we're not going to cover up what this building once was to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to more of your time in ComEd and how has that opened your eyes? Like, did you ever think you'd be making 6 figures, I guess?
Well, no, I didn't know. I didn't think so. I thought like maybe in some like lucky world I'd buy a couple buildings and maybe real estate my way to it, but not just as a job.
Where was the seed for real estate planted?
Just probably when I got an adult and I saw other adults buying property. Okay. That wasn't something that was talked about in our household at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people know that's like one of the main ways to build generational wealth.
Yeah. That's how most of it is built, right? You buy a house cheap, and then you get equity, and then you pull from that equity, and you send a kid to school with no debt, and then that kid goes to college, and then that, most of the time, or you take the equity out of your home and you go buy another house, and you buy rental property. I had this one guy at ComEd. He said he bought a building every time his kids was born, and then when they turned 19, he bought 3 buildings, had 3 kids, and when they all turned adults, he said, "Hey, you can either take this building, and you live on the first floor and rent out the second floor. You could sell this building and go to college and take a break year and travel Europe. You can do this." I'm like, that's such an amazing head start in life, man.
I'm not sure if we talked about your partnership with Tanika when it wasn't recording, but you said you have a tour coming up on Monday.
Yep.
What has it been like working with Tanika to share these tours with her? Like, what are your styles like? How do they differ? How do they overlap?
Yeah, I'm the historian, institutional, dates and times, and she's more of the how it affects the people, right?
Okay.
How does a lack of investment in a space also bring a lack of art, and what does that do to the overall feel of a neighborhood? But like you say, it's mostly like her folded map project also identifies houses that were bought on contract buying, and so there are markers identifying those houses, and so when we get to one of those houses, we kind of pass the mic to her, and then I do the general neighborhood tour, and then we get in front of another marker. She talks about the markers.
How much time do you spend getting to know the people that are taking the tours? Because you said in that previous podcast that you've tried to tailor the tour to whoever's on the bus.
So I do a lot of private tours lately.
Okay.
Right. If I have 50 Haitian nurses on there, then we talk about all of the Haitian Americans or people from Haiti who came to Chicago and made a difference, particularly Du Sable, right? If it's Mexican Americans on the bus, then we're going to talk about how a lady went on a 180-day hunger strike to create Benito Juarez High School.
Do they fill this out? Like, do you know this way in advance, or are you kind of like
catering
it on the fly?
So I sell tickets on a Saturday, right?
Okay.
And anyone can get on. If 75% of the bus gets on, they're black from the South Side, then that's what we're going to talk about, right?
Sure.
Black South Side stuff. But then sometimes, certain high schools will book me or certain colleges. And then, like I said, sometimes I do medical students or sometimes I do law students. And then I try to curtail it to who's on the bus.
Yeah. And that bus, that's a recent thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Doesn't seem recent. I'm working so much on it. We just got it in January, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the start like? Like, when you first wanted to do tours, were they walking tours?
Nah, I seen the kind of ebbs and flows of walking tours from other walking tours I've taken, and it's always like 4 dudes ignoring everything and talking about everything else while you're trying to do the tour. So what we did was we leased a bus. And just put an event on Eventbrite saying that we were doing 2-hour bus tours, and just kept doing that till we were in a position to get our own bus.
Yeah, and in a photo that I don't know who took it, but I saw Chief Summer from CFD took a recent tour. She's been a huge advocate for our program here, as well. Do you give tours to CPD? Because I know My Block, My Hood, My City gives like walking tours to CPD personnel.
Yeah, we're discussing that now. I think I will like probably get a bite at the new recruits, right? I don't know. Sometimes people set in their ways, and sometimes their questions come from a place of, I've been a cop for 20 years and I know this, and I'm like, wait, I don't know, my temperament ain't designed for that, but I think.
Well, you want to work with people that want to be there,
that want
right?
to be there, right? Yeah. And sometimes there's this immediate rush to the criminalization of folks. And I think rookie cops need to kind of understand that none of the 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds that are shooting wanted to be that when they were 5. And it starts like it's the most American thing on earth is revenge. And we can't understand why we have so much problems in Chicago. And a lot of it is simply revenge driven. If Wisconsin comes and, smacks a whole bunch of Illinoisans, They're going to want the governor to go back and get his lick back.
You see it in something as in sports,
Yeah.
right? Just it's even a crosstown classic
Yeah.
can be rough
You
for
know,
the fans.
if I foul you and they don't call a foul, my teammate's going to foul you the next time down. And so imagine you're 6 years old and you live in an apartment next to your best friend, and both of your parents work 2 jobs and they Uber to pay the bills. And so it's just y'all.
Yeah.
And then you guys grow up, and then you're 13. And maybe he has an older cousin that's involved in something, but you're not. So he gets to hang with that older cousin. And now y'all 16. It's been the dude that you share $1 burgers with. And then he gets killed. And then his older cousin comes to you and say, yes, his best friend, it's your job to get revenge on these dudes. It's hard.
How do you say no to that?
You know what I mean? Like, right? How do you find the emotional intelligence to say no to that? Right? That's all that's going on. But we won't step in the middle. We won't teach conflict resolution as a skill across every school. We won't step in to help those parents who gotta leave their kids unattended from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. We don't have a single school in the city that stays open to 9 p.m. I don't understand that. They're not going to be outside doing anything if they could be inside playing the game and shooting basketball. There's nothing in the city open to 9 p.m.
Yeah, the last thing I heard that they were working on from my block is like putting up the nets back up.
Yeah, just that, right? Like, the answer to stopping gangs is to take the nets off the rims. That's what you think the answer was? Do you know it's illegal to buy spray paint in the city of Chicago?
Mm-mm.
It was illegal to buy spray paint.
Currently?
Yes, currently. You know why? Because in 1980s and 90s, let's say you're in the, what were you on, Hoyne? You're in the Hoyne gang, and I'm in the Troop gang, right? So in the 80s, I would drive on Hoyne and spray paint on the building. Hoyne dudes suck. And so then you come back and you tag my block. And the city thought the way to stop gangbang was to eliminate them from tagging, so they banned spray paint. You know what happened? Public art started to fall because what do we use for murals? Spray paint, right? And so it's that why we haven't made the safety things that we want to. We're not serious about it.
Yeah, it's like trying to put a Band-Aid on a fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to get at the root cause, is there anything else besides after-school programs?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
I think in the comments section, people say it starts in the home. It starts with the parents. And it's just not that easy, especially if it's a single parent, and they're probably holding 2 to 3 jobs to hold things down. So they can't even be a parent because they're not around. So these kids are just kind of out and about.
You know, it's ignoring the impact of something that's passed, right? If I ask most people who's their favorite player, who's the greatest player, they're going to say Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan ain't touched the basketball in 20 years. But his impact is still felt. So why is it insane to think the impact of redlining is not still felt, right? Just 7 years ago, if you had 2 dime bags of weed, you were charged with not just possession, intent to distribute. Because you have 2 individual bags of weed. The dude could have just gave you buy one, get one free. If the police get you, and you're now going to fight a case for intent to distribute hard drugs. So if you don't got a lawyer, what do? You're going to take a plea deal. You're going to take the felony. They're going to send you home. And now you're forced to Uber and work at Walmart and work several jobs, man or woman, because what's now very legal and making billions of dollars had this super negative impact. Thank God I had like middle class family. This is not that long ago, bro. This is 2007. Me and my cousin are riding down the street.
Yeah.
He had a roach, right? I don't know what people call them now, just a put out blunt in his ashtray he forgot about.
Wow.
We get pulled over. They said that we were in possession of illegal substance. They towed his car. It was $1,600 to get his car out. It was $500 to get us both out of jail.
Oh, my God.
For a roach. It was their prerogative. Now, thankfully, we got out of it. But what if you're the person who couldn't? You lose your job, and you lose your car, and you're stuck in jail. And now you're
supposed to get out of that.
How are you supposed to get out of it? And worse than that, what if you got a kid? Right? How is that affecting them? The teenagers that are doing the crime now are the sons and daughters of the people that we were locking up for weed. 2000. If you were born in 2000, right? 2006, 2007.
Right.
You're a teenager now. Right. My son was born in 2007. He's 16. Right. So my life could have been destroyed when he was born, if not from me being very, very fortunate. And no one thinks about that in today because it's past, right?
Yeah.
That's why history is so important. Like these kids, we've eliminated so much from them, and then things happen, and we want them to react different, right? They don't want to be out there doing that. You know, we've kind of boxed many of them in. That ain't to say some of them ain't idiots, right? Ain't to say that there aren't negative people. There've always been though. There are going to be some people that say, hey, all these dudes are scared of me. I can make them do these things, right? And you know, I don't think there's ever going to be a program for that person, but there'll be less dudes for him to kind of puppet around, you know, if there's more programs.
Yeah.
And then that volume would just bring the crime down.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I feel like you've seen both ends of the spectrum with your dad spending decades on the department. What was that duality like?
We call ourselves like PKs, right? Preacher's kids and police officer kids.
Okay.
And on the one hand, like when you're the son of a cop, everybody thinks you're the snitch because you're the son of the cop. And then everybody hates cops.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like I said, it's fortunate, man. My dad was probably the smartest person I know. He never became sergeant. He never became lieutenant because if he saw a white cop beating up a black dude, he'd pull over and ask him what's the charge. He had so many suspensions on his record. You know, one time they made his beat was walking 2 alleys for 60 days because he dared challenge an arrest. Like, so I got to see that.
He wanted to continue to stay on the force.
Yeah. He felt like
change from within.
Yeah, right. He would say if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Oh, yeah.
And
he also said what a rising tide lifts all the other boats.
Yeah, rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
And he you know, still, right, like he was one of maybe 3 or 4 live-in dads on my block. So not to say other dudes didn't have dads, it's just there were like maybe 3 families that had mom and dad, and everybody else was like either dad or either mom, right? A bunch of single or with grandparents, right? So because of that, he had this presence on my block. You know, everybody knows the house with the 3 dads in it, the 3 complete families, right?
Yeah. And
you know, he took time to talk to all the kids and let them touch his squad car. And like right now, 4 of my neighbors became cops. And if I call them, they're like, hey, bro, why you a cop? They'll say, Dilla, shut the hell up. You know why? It was because of your dad, you know? And so I got to see that too. I got to.
That's funny. What if he moved to Beverly or Portage?
Yeah.
Where all the firemen and the police live, right?
He didn't. He stayed right there in the hood. We stayed on 81st Troop in the hood, man. Like it was gang violence at its heights. He'd hear shootouts and he'd get his gun and run outside. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So, and having experienced the negative end of what shitty cops can do, like how do you maintain a balance of your perspective for the force overall? You
know, he even would acknowledge that he was a part of a system that needed a true overhaul.
Yeah.
And he did not respect his badge, did not do his job, but he understood that he still was part of something that could get an overhaul. Yeah. And I don't think the police understand how much we ask them to do because it's in culture now. And we should be asking them to do a little less and providing other places with a little more. And that would probably make their jobs easier. But you're right. It's hard being the son of a cop when you got like 16 shots in a cover-up, right? With Laquan McDonald, it's hard when even me. I never forget, man, having a cop pull my pants down on the side of the road and tell me lift my sack because he's looking for drugs. That's traffic's driving by. On the
side of the road?
On the side of the road. As traffic is going by. I told him my dad was a cop. He didn't give us. He said, "The dad ain't with you now, motherfucker." You know, like, so I understand that. I'm the worst optimistic person in the world, though. So then there's that, right? I truly believe that we want it better. It will be better. So I still have hope even in the police department.
Yeah. So any advice for those that want to cancel cops altogether?
Yeah, I think anything you cancel that you don't have an answer for after is setting yourself up for failure. We've seen that 1,000 times, right? We canceled liquor. We called it prohibition, but we didn't have a plan in place. So we created allegedly the American mafia, right? Like anytime you go with any kind of prohibition without a plan behind it. So even if you say get rid of the police, now what? If you don't have the now what answered, right? Because there's some, like I said, I'm way too truthful. If my 16-year-old son does something, I want you to give him some grace. I want you to understand that his dad works all these hours and maybe I missed something. If somebody does something to my 16-year-old son, I want that mofo to go to jail. And I understand that duality, and so I also every now and again got to give grace to other people's kids, even if that kid does something to my kid. And in the middle of that is the police, right? The police are of the community. If I was like the most well-to-do cop on earth, you get on TV and everybody thinks you suck. So we gotta like leave space for everybody. I think there are ways. I think
when you say leave space, like grace, or
yeah, right. I think a cop only listens to people lie every single day.
Yeah.
Every day, every word. No one is telling you the truth. You just you want to do is give them a warning, and they're like, "I wasn't doing 40." Like no one is telling you the truth. That gotta burn you out. That gotta change you as a person, right? Yeah. I think after 10 years, make a cop go just watch preschool all day, right? Like let him regain or being around human beings. I do think that they need to retest, right? You can't stay a fireman without retaking the physical test. You couldn't stay a lifeguard without retaking the physical test.
Yeah.
Once you pass the police department, you never have to run that 1.5 miles again. I think if they had to redo the physical test every couple of years, exercise brings endorphins, and that also, right, will just make them healthier. Cops have a very high suicide rate. They get very obese. They don't live past 70 after they retire.
Yeah.
So some things to change would help them, right? I think some of those things would benefit them very much.
Is it beneficial to have cops that grew up in certain neighborhoods police those neighborhoods?
Yeah, I think so.
And in an ideal world, or in a non-ideal world, if that isn't the case, what advice would you give someone if their beat is in a neighborhood that they're not used to?
I think that's some of the problem, right? Sometimes we apply rules liberally, right? You used to have to live a district away, right?
Oh, that tight.
Yeah,
oh,
but then they started to say, well, that close means you're susceptible to bribes. Or maybe one dude does go down for bribing, and instead of trying to figure out that, they just create a liberal rule, right? And so some of those rules got changed because of that. I think we're in a place to revisit that. I think that cops should have to live pretty close to where they work.
Okay.
Let me pause.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, I think
pretty close.
Yeah, I think cops need to live pretty close to the people that they are going to be protecting, so that you get to see them outside of your uniform.
It's almost personal then.
Yeah. You get to care about them.
Rehumanizes the person.
Now it's like another thing that they did a long time ago that the city was against was they made it, not the city, the people in the city was against, the requirement for the associate's degree. Right, you either need 60 credit hours or 4 years in the Army, and so that eliminated a lot of BIPOC people. Everything works great on a farm system, right? But the baseball teams that win the most world championships are the ones that had the players from the minor league now playing for them. And so if we know we're going to need police officers, why are we not going into high school, identifying those candidates that want to be police officers and putting them through all kind of training and then making them be close to where they are, right? Like, I think there are ways that it can be done. Yeah. I don't know if we need to abolish the police. I do know the thing needs to be changed top to bottom, right? I don't know what else you call that but abolition, right? Like, I don't know another term. I'm not saying fire every cop today and then redo the thing, right? I think we underestimate how many.
You think it'll just change over time, like generationally?
That's the other thing too. I think if we wanted to,
Yeah.
Right. I think if you set your sights and you say, okay, every cop that's hired today, you're grandfathered in. Every cop that gets hired tomorrow, you got to have a professional license. You got to retake your physical tests. And then you're given the choice on the candidate. If you don't want to adhere to these new standards that are going to be better for everybody, don't take the fucking job. Yeah. Right? I think that's a good way to do it.
I'm curious, like, if they're experiencing a shortage in recruits.
Oh, they are.
It's like it's tough to be a cop these days. So, like, why would anyone want to sign up?
One, it's still a lot of people that do. There's still a lot of people that feel it's a calling. And sometimes we make it difficult for them. A dude who spent his whole life wanting to be a cop, he got caught with weed when he was 17, and now that disqualifies him from the police department.
Right.
But the dude that, probably didn't get caught doing way worse shit, they're on the force, right? So it's some of that. I think you go to a place and you find out the people that want to do that and you help them do it successfully.
Yeah.
As opposed to just like, sometimes it's the dude that just needed the job and now he's a cop. You know what I mean?
It's just a job.
It's just a job to him and he don't care.
Yeah. You had a tweet about a cop that was also put in charge of the housing authority.
Yeah. Oh no, he wasn't a cop. He was a private developer that was in charge of Chicago Housing Association. You talking about Charles Swibel?
No, it starts with an F, I think.
And he was a cop? Yeah, I can't recall.
Yeah. The other similar story that resonated was LSD.
Oh yeah.
Is that one group or three different groups?
It's three different groups combined. Yeah, right. One you gotta love anytime you can say LSD, but in the Cabrini Green housing projects in the late '60s, early '70s, anytime you take away good, bad's gonna fester. And so because of the lack of security and lack of like maintenance jobs and just lack of supervision at the housing projects, gangs could take over very easily.
Sure.
And so the gangs did. And they were in the process of that takeover. And what they were noticing is that anytime a repair got done, a big repair job, come fix all the windows, it went to some like suburban contractor. And so the Vice Lords, which is for the L, the Blackstones, which is for the S, and the Gangster Disciples, which is for the D, they formed LSD, and they went to old Mayor Daley and was like, your contractors ain't going to have such a good time over here if we don't start seeing more of us on these things. If you want us to not be out here, union jobs is a good way. And they met a couple times, and he gave them a percentage of jobs. And they were able to.
Did they actually get on a union too?
Some of them did, and not just that. They were able to then tell all the other lower level gangbangers, like, if anybody messes with a contractor, we're gonna mess you up. And so that made the place safer, right? Yeah.
Wonder what was going on through Mayor Daley's head.
Mayor Daley was the type of person that would do a deal with anybody so long as he came out with the benefit. He didn't, and I think that's true of the times though, right? The United States government used the, Lucky Luciano to get in Italy, right? When they used the mob to protect the ports during World War II. They went to them for the alleged mob. I wasn't there. They went to them for for Castro, right? So in those times, they would get in bed with quote unquote criminals if it served their justice, if it served their purpose. And so numerous times, right? There were times the aldermen on the east side of Chicago, so Woodlawn and Hyde Park and Kenwood, they made an agreement with the Blackstones after the King riots. The west side got tore up, but the Blackstones went to all the businesses in Woodlawn and other places and sold them these badges and was like, put this badge in your window and they're protected by the Blackstones. And if somebody broke one of them windows, Blackstones kicked your ass, right? So in those days they would do it again. Maybe not so much now.
It seemed like there was definitely a purpose to gangs back in the day. What do you think is the purpose, if any, of gangs these days?
I don't even really think we got true gangs.
We don't even have gangs anymore.
Yeah, you got a bunch of people from a particular place that maybe that neighborhood belonged to a particular gang.
Yeah.
And so now those kids claim that gang, but they really claim each other more than an overarching gang. Prison has its own set of politics. I'm not in jail. I don't know that set of politics, but I wouldn't say that we have there may be pockets, like very, very small pockets of still what we would consider true traditional gang banging. But right now it's just like block to block, right? Like, I live on one block, you live on another block, and we got into it with each other. And now these two blocks are warring.
It's really that, like, that's survival mode?
Oh, yeah. Because a lot of times you'll have a lot of kids from multiple gangs that live on the same block, and they're fighting under the umbrella of that block. Yep.
And what are we to do? We're trying to present opportunities for them to take up their time otherwise?
I think Nipsey Hussle said it best: you cannot check anybody you didn't check on. And so going to get 16 and 17-year-old kids to stop beefing with each other, just like an act of God, right? Something has to happen with them to decide that they don't want to participate anymore. But you've lost your ability to go tell them anything
right.
when you wasn't checking on them when they were shorties. Because there are people in this city, Corey Brooks, Jamal Cole from my block, Vondale Singleton. There are people who can go to any of these blocks to do corporate from social media, right? Chicago Be Like. He goes to the schools and talks to them when they like in second grade preschool. And then the ones if he have relationships with them, he'll answer their DMs and this, that, and the third. So then when they become 16 and he hear they involved in something, they'll listen to them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They'll listen to Corey Brooks.
He showed them the time of day.
Yeah. So if you not finna, they already like on survival mode, right? Like to them, it's life or death every day. And there's nothing else but this situation. And then you're going to come tell them that, hey, man, put the guns down. There's more hope for you.
It's a little too late.
It's way too late. You guys, what they say, it's easier to if we want to change Chicago, we start right now with the second and third graders and we follow them. You get a group of second graders. You get a group of third graders citywide, and you follow them. And we pour into them. And I'm not saying don't help the older people, but we will bring the culture up. One day those third graders going to be the 16, 17-year-olds. And they would have brought the culture up with them. Because that's what we need to do.
And are there appropriate resources for second and third graders like across the city? Or are we still
I wouldn't
lacking?
say across the city, but I think we're making those strides. I know I'm committed to it, right? I'm very committed to picking a cohort of you give me 20 second or third grades right now. I'm gonna check on them,
Okay.
all the way through.
And with identity, I think it's a lot easier to cultivate or help someone cultivate an identity starting at second or third grade, and without giving up on the 16, 17-year-olds. How do we help them move forward after whatever has happened? How do we help them move forward? And these things, like we said, is very reactive. It's very ego-driven. How do we help them heal and move forward?
One, sometimes time is needed.
Yeah.
Two, I still think it's with the youth, right? Like, it's one thing for us to go to them and say, hey, man, we want to keep the streets safe so they can grow up. Again, I think you empower them to go to them. And, I've never seen somebody be mean to a first grader, bro. You know what I'm saying? The toughest dude on earth just not mean to a first grader. They just not. There's this thing where we need to keep the kids away from them. And I think the opposite, man. I think the kids is the answer all the way through. They would.
I haven't heard that before.
You ain't never seen it, man. The baddest hell angel, tattooed motorcycle dude on earth just ain't walking up to a first grader and telling them, suck my dick. I'm gonna be. Yeah, that don't happen.
Yeah.
They will say that to you and me, though.
Right.
If I go to a 17-year-old, tell them stop the violence and all that stuff, man, shut up or I'll shoot you. They're not gonna say that to a second grader.
Yeah.
They're not gonna say that to a second grader. Yeah,
that's a good point.
I think you make the second graders make them listen, and then sometimes, man, we can't it's real to them.
kid, the
all
16,
the
17
16, 17-year-old. They've lost friends. They have their friends' names tattooed on them. They've been to the funerals. Like, after Pearl Harbor, you could not go to the people in the United States and say, Japan is being misled by Germany. Don't react. Let's talk. It wasn't no talking. The day after Pearl Harbor, Franklin Delano Roosevelt declared war. The day after somebody's best friend get killed, they're declaring war.
Yeah.
And we gotta understand that that's a practical thing, you know. And it sucks. It sucks, but it's like we have all these questions for now, right now, and there's been people screaming this same shit for 30 years, and we won't listen. Dude closed 52 schools, 50, and we told him this is what's gonna happen. Right now, if me and you grow up in the same neighborhood, and then we grow up, right? Me and you are 19. We in the same neighborhood, and then our two little brothers goes to the school in that same neighborhood, and they get into a fight. Your little brother come home and get you and say, they beat me up, so you on your way to school. And they come get me, and I'm on my way to school. Well, guess what? We know each other. Hey, man, we just going to let these little two dudes knuckle it out. We're going to call it a day because everybody knows each other. When you close 50 schools and two kids get into a fight, and they go get their friend, they get their big brother. The big brother don't know nobody. So he got to come as tough as he can, which is going to probably mean a gun, right? And on it goes. And it starts with closing schools. You know, you sending people to a place where they know nobody, like 0 people, and you shocked that stuff happens. And there are Chicagoans and Pullman that's all their kids went to George Pullman Grammar School.
Yeah.
You know, like that familiarity, that's how Chicago was set up. That's why there are so many schools. That's why they're in the neighborhoods. There's designed for you to be able to function and know your neighbors. And you know, you go to the west side and see how many open elementary schools you see. Go to the south side and see how many open elementary schools you see. There ain't many.
Any advice for the teachers of these kids? It's tough.
Oh my goodness. I think they're in a good spot with Brandon Johnson just because he's like such a union guy. So I don't know about the rest of the city. I'm not saying he's the savior of Chicago.
Sure.
I'm saying the teachers are going to have it a lot easier with him in office. Because just little stuff, you know, pay me on my prep. If you pay the teacher on her prep, they donate that time back on after school. But it's you won't even pay me to grade my papers. You think I'm staying after school?
I didn't know that was that bad.
Yeah, they don't get paid for prep. Elementary school teachers don't get paid for prep, period.
Oh my.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
They got to do the grading. You know how like they teach 4 periods and then they're all 5th and 6th?
Yeah.
So they're only paid for the periods that they teach. They don't get prep is not covered for elementary school teachers. Look it up. That was a big thing in the contract.
That's wild.
Nuts.
Why do people stay?
Calling, man.
It's a calling.
It's a calling. They because teachers understand better than us all that you may not reach the whole classroom every school year.
Wow.
But if you get 3 or 4, those 3 or 4 could change the world, right? As modest as I can say it, I don't think my teachers reached everybody in my classroom, but a couple of them reached me, and now I want to teach the whole world history. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think teachers understand that, like, yeah, if I can get a couple of them, they'll reach the masses for me. And that's why teachers stay.
I love that. What has social media done for you?
Changed my life, man. I won't even lie. My wife, when I first met her, she had never been to any sports teams, and now she's been to every game but at a suite.
Amazing.
They've been in the box at every single sports team.
You brought the whole fam.
Yeah, I usually do, right? That's my ask, you know. I'm not real big on money. It's like I just want my whole family to enjoy this stuff
experience.
With me. Yeah, right.
But it's not just that. You've done quite a few number of like collaborations.
Yeah.
I think people really enjoy the way you tell stories and how insightful and relatable and you learn at the same time.
Well, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I will.
So when you say you want to start a podcast, there will be people that will probably jump at the opportunity to help you with this project. Yeah. So all you have to do is show up, hit record, and they'll do the rest.
Yeah. I'm my network is getting a little wider, right? Yeah. So, a few. I tell my wife I'm like a C-list celebrity in Chicago, but I know the A-listers, they'll come. talk Chicago with me and stuff like that.
So it doesn't sound like it's changed you as a human being, but like realizing that there are levels to this game of life.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like you are trying to manipulate your way up this ladder, but you just like are open-minded to whatever comes through.
You know what? My favorite human being on earth is Jay-Z, right? And we both have the fortune of finding success late. He was 26 when his first album dropped.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like, just think about Chief Keef's first album. He's 16, he's on top of the world.
Yeah.
Any of them, right? Tupac was 25 when he died. Right? Biggie was 25 when he died. Right? So imagine you're 26, your first album. You're already a fully functioning adult. You're already, you know, you've spent money on stupid stuff. You've chased the wrong girl. You kind of know what matters. And so for me, I went viral on TikTok at 38. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I already had a wife that I love. I already had a pretty decent job. I already had, you know, kids that I'm trying to lead this world. And it was all I ever wanted. All I ever wanted was like a nice wife that I could smack her butt, and some nice kids and a dog. Like
What's her name? What's her name?
Lynette.
Lynette. Cheers, Lynette.
I'm smacking your butt when I see you too.
So it truly felt like all this
icing,
attention was icing.
It was icing.
Oh,
it was icing on the cake, and maybe not just icing, but I almost like, oh shit, now why me? I got this responsibility now, like, because it ain't just a money grab.
It starts
and
feeling like a job.
Yeah, it is. I won't say it's a job. I think God, the universe, whomever is just like, hey, dude, you're getting ready to have to be Chicago. It's historian, so I hope you're ready. You know, it's just like purpose kind of thing, you know. And Barack Obama said it on this thing. It's a Netflix show called Work. And he took that idea from Studs Terkel, who's a Chicago historian.
Yeah.
And both of them say focus less on what you want to do. I mean, be and more what you want to do. So, right, some people will say, I want to be a doctor. Well, do you want to be a doctor or do you want to help people?
Yeah.
Because if you focus on just wanting to help people, you may not become a doctor, but you will help people.
Yeah.
Right? If you know, do you want to be a politician or do you want to help change policy? There's a whole lot of people that help get policy changed and written and they'll never get elected to office and they are happy. And so for me, like, I want the world to know Chicago is the greatest city on earth. I want my kids to grow up in Chicago safe and fully healthy and have every opportunity. And so I'm committed to doing whatever I can to make that a reality. And if every now and again somebody invites me to Chance's party or if by telling a story that unites us, I catch some Bears tickets, then so be
it. Speaking of Barack Obama's Netflix show, are you still working on a Netflix show?
Yeah, the writer's strike kind of just crashed everything that was on anybody's table right now.
But
so
when it ends, I'm sure you're still
we
working on it.
we like had pilot episode. I'm working on a scripted show for streaming with Thomas Lennon, who's the creator of Reno 911. Lieutenant Dangle, man, new boots goofing. So we created a show.
Did not know he was behind Night at the Museum.
Yes, he is, man. And so much more, man. He even wrote like Taxi with Jimmy Fallon and Queen Latifah.
Did not know that either.
Yeah, man. He cold, right? So he's such a staunch union rights that he won't even talk about the shit till it's over with. So I'm sure. Integrity. Yeah, right. You know what though? My mom said you can't rush what you want to last forever. So, you know, it'll happen when it happens, if it happens. I'm working on other stuff. I got other shows and stuff that I'm getting ready to start pitching. I'm finna pitch PBS. It's all like history kind of stuff.
I guess, who are some Chicagoans that you feel like us, like regular Chicago, like who are some memorable Chicagoans that we don't know
of? Great. Barbara Sizemore. She's the first black lady to head a large school district. She became the head of DC. What is nope, it's coming. It's not Lucy Flowers. That's not her name. I can't think of her name. Anyway, Ella Flagg, I knew it. Ella Flagg Young is her name. and she's the first woman to ever head a school district, and it was Chicago. She's an Irish lady. She became the head of CPS, right? First woman to do it. I think every Chicagoan in the world should know who Rita Semo is. The People's Music School up in Edgewater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a free music school, and all you have to do is sign up. So if you take 2 years of piano class, you got to teach 2 years of piano class.
Oh.
Right? And that's how it works.
It's a cycle.
And so you learn, and once you learn, you get proficient, you got to teach somebody else. And you can't charge to teach it, and they don't charge you to learn it. And it started because Rita Semo was a nurse. I mean, not a nurse. She was a nun at this big Catholic church up there. And she met the father, and, you know, they liked each other. So they decided to not be nun and father anymore. And, you know, so they got married, but she still felt that they had a calling to God. So the calling to God was the People's Music School, right? She's a Chicagoan. She did that in our city. Like I said, Inez Laredo is the lady. And what's so dope about Inez is that there were no high schools in Pilsen for the Mexican kids.
Okay.
Like there's still to this, there's only one, right? There's only one physical high school in the neighborhood, in the footprint of Pilsen. It's Benito Juarez.
Okay, yeah.
Right, but before there wasn't. And so imagine you're these Mexican kids and you got to go to Kelly, you got to go to these other high schools.
Wow.
And, you know, they talking shit about your accent. And you think they're going to teach Mexican history there? You can get the hell out of here with that. And so she went on a hunger strike and forced the city to build Benito Juarez. And then 20 years later, her son was the principal at Benito Juarez. We should always tell that story to everybody every school year. You know who was a pretty cool dude, man? Not football extending, but like George Halas, right? Like there are letters of him writing to the NFL saying like, this is really stupid that we don't have black people on our team, right? And I like I say, I leave space for people, right? Like today he got grandkids that's eating off his money. So what if he would have jumped and said, I'm going to do this, right? He had to contend with his family too. But, you know, him and Charles Comiskey always had blacks on the staff. They always had, always donated to black causes and stuff like that. So, you know, Super Bowl, no Super Bowl. George Halas was a pretty cool dude as it relates to just uplifting our city. And we should talk about him in those ways, not just as the founder of the Bears, right? My second favorite Chicagoan ever is Julius Rosenwald. Just Jewish cat from Springfield. He's philanthropic as hell. He gave us the Museum of Science and Industry. People should talk about him an awful lot. There's, Sis Daly, right? Old man Daly's wife was real philanthropic, and she kind of taught that to Maggie Daly, and then Maggie Daly gets us After School Matters. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, so Gallery 37 was created by Maggie Daly, which is Richard Daly's wife, and then Gallery 37 becomes After School Matters. Right?
So the last guest learned about pastries and cooking through that, and then got interested in ceramics because upstairs they would give their spare cupcakes to the people doing pottery upstairs. And then he's like, I actually like what they're doing too. So that's amazing.
Yeah, man. Like this it's people that have, you know, cemented left things for us, and you know, every now and then we should say their name and keep their spirits alive. And then everything is that's named at one of my favorite things, man, Buckingham, right? We all know the Buckingham Fountain. So it's named after Charles Buckingham. His sister and he were the last remaining descendants of the Buckingham family here in Chicago. And they were philanthropists. Like if a school needed art brushes or paint or whatever, they were like art patrons. So if you needed art, anything, they would pay for it. And then neither one of them ended up having kids. And so they're worried about their legacy. And so when Charles dies first, the sister like flies in marble from Italy to make, that thing is made of pink marble. It's a ridiculously expensive fountain. It's one of the best in the world. But she made it just so that, she donated it to the city just so that we would remember Charles Buckingham. Like that's the only reason it's there, that they were art patrons and they wanted the world to remember it. And now people fly all over the world to see that fountain, right? Like
that's what it is. So, especially just being in just hearing you, it is so easy to feel like a tourist. You could have lived here all your life, and it's like you might have not stepped out of your neighborhood, or just like knowing these facts, like it makes you definitely proud to be from Chicago.
Word.
But at the same time, it's like there's so much more to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot more. That's what keeps me fired up. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know every story. There's we used to have like Filipino reunions here in Chicago, and I'm dying to find me a liaison to the Filipino community to know why was Chicago a place. The first ever Filipino chef for the White House is from Chicago. First ever Filipino dude for the CIA, Chicago. Like, what made us? Right, like,
Well, we have a few Filipinos listening to this podcast.
yeah,
so.
right. Hit me up. Let me know. Right? Is it just as simple as 10 dudes came here and they just kept sending people, or was it like, was it a trade? Was it a business? Was it something that was it a church? Was it something that just anchored? And that's why it's such a strong Filipino presence here in Chicago. Like, so,
Yeah.
I'm interested in learning all that.
Do you have any tours that you're fond of?
Really, I like doing Roseland and Pullman.
What about tours of not your own?
Oh, I love doing the boat tour.
Okay.
Chicago Winds does a walking tour.
Oh. And
Please look them up.
Every neighborhood, or?
Yeah, they do every neighborhood, and it's they get grants, and so it's pay what you can.
Oh, okay.
So they do beautiful walking tours, and then Bricks of Chicago does an amazing tour where he explains the bricks. We got some of the most beautiful brick buildings in the city. I love taking those tours.
What was it, the Tribune Tower? You're like, that was one of your last TikToks.
Yeah, I need to make some more TikToks. But yeah, a lot of people even sleep on that, right?
Yeah.
Like 7 Wonders of the World right there downtown. It's crazy.
Is there a certain reel or several reels that just for some reason took off?
Dibs is probably why I'm sitting here today, telling the story of parking Dibs. It's the first real viral one, I would say. People love the Lower Wacker Drive one.
What would you say in it?
Just like, who is Wacker, right? Like, it just sounds like a street. And it's named after Charles Wacker. He commissions these books for the Chicago plan in 1909. That's the reason why we have Lower Wacker Drive.
Not too long ago, I found out there's like a lower to the Lower Wacker.
Yeah, lower, third level of hell, right? So just explaining it and how it came to be, those ones. And then lately, I do this memory lane reel where I show Chicagoans in high school and then show what they came to be. So, Bill Zane, man, it's a lot of people from Chicago that people wouldn't expect.
So let's say you got friends or family coming to town. I know you probably try to ask them like what they want to see, but what would you be proud to show?
I'm proud to show Argyle Street.
Wow, nice. Okay.
Oh my God, that's so cool, man. To we like box. It's like when you say Asian American, it's like Chinese, right?
Sure.
And there's freaking so many other things under that moniker, right? Like it's Asian American and South Pacific Island. All of these, like, they're all there on Argyle Street, represented, and they speak their native tongue. You could be in a place, dudes speaking Vietnamese, other dudes speaking Cambodian, but they will stop and explain the differences to you, right? They're very patient, and so I'm proud to go on Argyle Street. It was a welcoming for people fleeing North Korea when that whole thing happened. So I love that place. I'm very proud of St. Sabina. Father Michael Flagrant.
Oh, okay. Haven't met him yet. Yeah.
You need to. The Catholic Archdiocese makes their priests leave their churches every 5 years to go somewhere else. He's been there for 40. Right? He ain't going nowhere they can't make him. I freaking love him.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of that church. I'm proud that there's a white Irish Catholic priest fighting for black lives on the south side of Chicago. That makes me immensely proud. I always show him, or I always show that church. I'm very, very proud of the Rookery. So most people go down.
The building.
Oh, man. You got to see the Rookery. It's like an example of why we have skyscrapers. At that time, started to build up the late 1880s, especially everywhere else in the world, they built flat, right? Maybe you got 4 levels. And so once we started to be able to build 8 stories, 10 stories, they made them decorative because they knew you were going to look up when you saw them because no one else had them in the world. And so the Rookery is a great example of looking up. The interior is an early example of Frank Lloyd Wright was the early draftsman.
Okay.
It's public building too, so they let anybody in the lobby at any time. Gold, marble.
I know wedding photos are done over there.
Oh my goodness! So I'm proud of that. And then the Rookery was the site where our old City Hall was once on that location. And then the original Chicago Public Library was once on that location.
Yeah.
So it's a very famous block. I like showing people that. I'm a tourist, man. I show people the bean.
What would you, what would you add if you were to add anything to the Chicago History Museum?
Great question. I would add more about the Pullman porters.
Ooh.
Can
you explain what porter in what sense?
So we got planes now, but formerly we all took trains.
Yeah.
And so the Pullman porters worked the Pullman trains. They turned your sitting quarters into a sleeping quarter. They also packed your bags, brought your food, did all that stuff. Right? Yeah. They're considered the first middle class job for blacks in this country. They were really, really important in the civil rights era. Right? If you got a son that got into a historically black college down south, but you can't afford a train ticket, but you know a Pullman porter, he'll stow your kid away to college. Right?
Yeah. Wow.
Also, though, if your kid got into a fight with a white dude in the South and he was going to get lynched, the Pullman porter would stow him away back to the North so he can make it home alive. So I think there needs to be a bigger exhibit.
I wonder if Studs interviewed any Pullman porters.
Oh, what? Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
He did.
I'll try to look it up.
Yeah, he certainly did.
Studs actually, when you tweeted that, I feel like he was a black police officer. Studs interviewed him, so I'm trying to remember what was it about, but he was interviewed by Studs, and your tweet said, "If anyone wants to learn more, I am happy to answer." And I'm like, I'm gonna ask him that.
Yeah, I got it. It's a lot in my brain. I
hear you.
Look it up,
I hear you.
or recollect it. I love me some Studs Circle, man. Big fan of Studs.
What's next for you?
Man, I'm hoping to open like a micro museum on the South Side.
Oh, what?
Yeah, that's like a 5-year goal.
Is that easier than getting an exhibit into, let's say, the Chicago History Museum?
You know what? I would probably say they're about the same. What I'm interested in is kind of like having an offshoot of the Chicago History Museum on the South Side. Okay. Right? And it being a thing that people from the North Side got to come see the second one. And people from the South Side got to go see the original. I don't think anybody – I went to John W. Cook Elementary in the 80s and 90s, and I could positively tell you none of us ever took a school trip to the History Museum. Okay. Right? So I want to make sure that happens, but I also want the kids from, lab school or from any of the North Side schools to come to the South Side too, right? Yeah.
Any interest in, we briefly had a discussion on do you want to do politics and policy or be a politician? Maybe when I'm 60 years old, I would want to be an alderman. You feel like you're doing plenty of good right now?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe, like I said, I don't like it when
not even like alderman.
Yeah, see, I'm too young, man. They become lifers, and then they're in there forever.
You can tell yourself like a 2-term.
Yeah, limit. So I think maybe closer to retirement.
Yeah, when you got nothing, when you're going strong at this right now for sure.
And then it depends on who the mayor would be at that time too, because sometimes
it's hard to get shit done.
It's hard to get shit done, and then you done took a spot and a salary, and I wouldn't want to be that dude.
Like golden handcuffs.
Yeah, if I don't think that I'm gonna be able to enact real change, I wouldn't do it. Yeah. I'd much rather try to throw my support behind somebody who can get some change done. Yeah. Right. The kingmaker is as good as the king. Sometimes they cut the king head off. They don't never really cut the kingmaker head off. He makes another king.
So when you choose who to support and who to back, are we just left to kind of taking their word for it?
I think at this stage with social media, I could kind of prove, right? If you're a middle-aged 50-year-old dude and you don't got a social media presence, I'm probably not trusting you. Right? You could have been showing your something from you running for office, class president at college should still be around, right? Yeah. I should see an impactful speech you made on your campus. On Facebook, you still got it all, right? So then there are things happening in the world that you could lend your voice to online anyway, right? So if you
not when it's just in your best interest.
Yeah, not when you get ready to run. So now is the time you're vocal. I don't know if you're the person I'm gonna throw my support behind anyway.
Yeah.
Right? You know?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's pretty much all I got. I think we got into all of it.
Man,
Just giving advice to the kids, to the next generation. I liked how you said start young. I really appreciate that.
Oh my God, start so young. Like I said, first, second grade, man.
Yeah.
The best of the best start young at everything. And, you know, a lot of times it's like you think it just happened when really like these people parents prepared them, right? Like Michael Phelps' dad had him swimming forever, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, Jordan was an athlete all his life, and so I think you see leaders in second and third grade. I got 7 kids, bro. I see their leadership qualities and certain things. My 10-year-old can quiet the whole house. She can get the 19-year-old to chill. She has that kind of presence, you know. My 14-year-old is super laid back, right? Sending him to go be the vocal one ain't gonna do the job, right? So I think we can identify leaders.
It's very cool to see how much of a pulse you have on family. I think for a lot of people, balancing everything with everything you're doing and a personal life, it's very tough. Is that something you've always had an easy time with, like saying no to certain things?
Definitely say no to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Again, man, the best thing I ever got told was don't have a price, and if you don't have a price, you can never sell out.
Oh.
Right. So there was this. You asked me about Chicagoans. We should know there's another one. Tamil Black, lived to be 102. Is a Chicago historian. And
Tamil with a T?
Yeah, Timeul, Tamil Black.
Oh, okay.
And you know, when I met him, just he set me up so beautifully. He's like, "Hey, man, you got toilet paper at your house?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay." This is our first conversation. He like, if your wife go in the bathroom and hit the light switch, do it turn on? I'm like, yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I paid the light bill. He's like, okay. He's like, if your kids want an orange, can they open the fridge and get one? I was like, most days, yeah, we keep fruit in the house. He's like, ice cream too? I was like, yeah. He's like, brother, you got everything you could have in this life. You start chasing anything beyond that, you're going to sell yourself short. You're going to sell somebody out. You're going to sell your family. Now, that ain't to say don't want more. I want a 1973 Lincoln Continental right now, and I'm working hard to buy it. You know, there are Jordans coming out Saturday. I'm going to be on Sneaker App. I'm not saying don't want, and that ain't what I'm saying. Like, it's okay to want more, but, like, again,
remember what you have.
Remember what you have, man, and remember that somebody would cut their arm off for it. And how you appreciate what you have is why you get more. And you know, I don't know, man. Not that I want to be 7-figure Dilla. Yes, of course, right, but I never thought I'd be 6-figure Dilla. So
that's amazing.
I'm you know, I'm not the one to ask about trying to go be the richest dude, but I'm the one you come talk to about being the most fulfilled, man. I live in a city that I love with all my heart, and people know I love it, and so people treat me like that. And there ain't no money to that. There's it's worth more than $1,000 each time somebody stops me and says, "Hey, man, you make me feel proud to be from here." Like, how do you quantify that? Like, you can't. So
yeah. Well, Sherman, it was truly a pleasure.
No, thank you, bro. I appreciate you.
Thanks for shining so much positivity and being an example for not just Chicagoans, but everyone.
Thank you.
Whether it's like becoming a tourist again in your own city or attracting new friends and strangers to our city. It's amazing.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Everything dope comes from Chicago.
Everything dope about America comes from Chicago, bro.
All right, guys. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I'll see what I can do on the back end. But till the next time, stay curious.
Peace.